Everyone thinks a charging pad is just a slower cable. But the same phone, same battery tells a wilder story. Wired hits 80% in 20 minutes, while the pad needs 50 and cooks. That 30-minute gap decides your morning. Wired, you leave the house charged before work or a trip. Pad, you're still waiting. And the heat isn't just cosmetic. Here's the part nobody checks. Sustained warmth while charging speeds up lithium-ion battery aging. So the slow pad can quietly cost you battery health for years. Start with how each path actually moves energy. A cable is a direct road. It sends negotiated direct current power straight into the phone's charging circuit. The two ends agree on the voltage and current, then push. A pad has no road. It uses two coils, one in the pad and one in the phone, and pushes energy across a tiny air gap by induction. One coil makes a changing magnetic field. The other catches it and turns it back into current. Now the key numbers. A cable can push serious wattage. Many phones fast charge at 25 to 65 watts. A typical pad lands far lower, usually 7.5 to 15 watts for most phones. That's the whole ballgame. You are trying to pour the same amount of energy into the same battery. But one hose is roughly 3 times wider than the other. At a third of the power, you simply cannot refill as fast. The physics won't let you. So the 20 versus 50-minute gap isn't a mystery or a defect. It starts right here at the wattage. But watts alone don't tell you what the clock does. That covers the power. Now watch the clock. Charge 0 to 80% on a cable. It holds high wattage through the whole fast charge window and crosses 80% near the 20-minute mark. Fast and flatten. Put the same empty phone on the pad. It starts out already delivering less power, and then it does something worse. As the coil warms up, the phone taps the brakes and throttles the rate to stay safe. So the trickle gets thinner as it goes. That same 80% stretches to roughly 50 minutes. Why stop the stopwatch at 80 and not 100? Because both paths deliberately slow down after 80%, cable and pad alike, to protect the battery from the stress of topping off the last stretch. That final 20% is slow on purpose, on everything. Comparing at 80 keeps it fair. It's the part where the charging method itself, not the safety taper, is doing the work. So wired wins the race to 80 clean. But where did the pad's missing energy actually go? Here's where it gets wasteful. Sending energy across an air gap is leaky by nature. The two coils never line up perfectly, and a magnetic field spreading through open air spills energy that never reaches the phone. That spilled energy doesn't vanish. It turns into heat right there in the pad in the back of the phone. Put a number on it. A pad typically wastes 30 to 50% more energy as heat than a cable does. So to store the same charge, the wall has to draw more power. You pay for electricity that ends up warming your desk instead of your battery. And there's a twist that makes it worse. The two coils have to sit almost dead center on each other. Nudge the phone off center, the way it slides when you set it down at night, and efficiency drops further. Less energy crosses the gap, and even more of what you drew becomes heat. So the pad is both slower and thirstier. But that wasted heat does something sneaky to the speed too. Now connects the heat back to the clock. All that wasted energy warms the pad and the phone. And a phone hates being hot while it charges. Its thermal management steps in and throttles the charging rate to protect the battery. So the pad is slower than even its low wattage suggests, because the phone keeps pulling back to cool down. This is a feedback loop, and it's the real villain. More heat forces more throttling. More throttling means the charge drags on longer, which means more time generating heat. Round and round. That's exactly why real-world pad times run longer than the tidy numbers on the box. Those lab figures assume a cool room and a perfectly centered phone. Your nightstand is warmer and messier than a lab. A cable dodges almost all of this. It wastes far less energy so it stays cooler, so the phone rarely has to throttle. It holds its rate and just finishes. Wired isn't fighting its own heat the way the pad is. So which one should you actually reach for? Let's line them up head to head. On speed, the cable is the clear winner. Roughly 2.5 times faster to 80%, 20 minutes against 50. On energy, wired wins again. It wastes far less, so the wall draws less to store the same charge. On heat and long-term battery health, wired stays cooler and treats the battery more gently over the years. 3 columns, 3 wins for the cable. So is the pad pointless? Not at all. It just wins on a different scorecard. Convenience. No fumbling for a port in the dark. No wearing out the charging port over thousands of plugins. You drop the phone down and walk away. Perfect for a slow overnight top-up where speed simply doesn't matter. Here's the honest call. When you need the phone charged fast, or you care about wasted power and keeping the battery healthy for years, reach for the cable. When you're topping up in no rush and just want to set it down and forget it, the pad is genuinely nice. Match the tool to the moment. So let's put the whole mechanism together. So here's the full picture clicked together. The cable hit 80% in 20 minutes. The pad needed 50 and ran hot the whole way. And it all traces to two root causes working together. First, raw power. A cable pushes maybe 3 times the wattage a pad delivers, so it simply refills faster. Second, waste. The pad leaks 30 to 50% more energy as heat across that air gap, and that heat then throttles the charging even further, the slow feedback loop we watched. Lower power plus loss to heat inefficiency. That's the whole 20 versus 50 gap. And the real cost of the pad isn't only the extra half hour on the clock. It's the extra warmth over hundreds of nights, quietly stressing the battery and shaving its lifespan. So the decision rule is simple. Reach for the cable when minutes and battery health matter. Drop it on the pad when you just want lazy, no-fuss convenience. One line to keep it. Wired is faster and cooler. Wireless trades efficiency for the comfort of just setting it down. Match the tool to the moment. But there's a live question worth chasing. Newer high-watt wireless standards, think 50-watt plus magnetic pads, promise to close this gap. Do they actually pull it off, or does the same heat problem just come back louder? That's the next box to open.